My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my spoiler-filled review of Arkham Knight, where I talk about the story only. And look, my review for the game sounded a bit more positive than I would have liked, but in this video, I can truly tear it apart in every single way I want to because I hate this game. I think it's awful. The amount of love it receives is just baffling to me because the story being told is just so obviously bad. But let's get into it, beginning with the Scarecrow plot. And I do like the decision to make him the main villain, but he still has no real presence throughout the game. Like, we barely see him. He unleashes this fear gas, but he just kinda disappears under the Arkham Knight's shadow. You know, like in Arkham City, you barely see the Joker, but you still hear from him every now and again, and he still feels important. While Scarecrow just kind of feels like an afterthought, to be honest, which is so weird because he's the main villain of the game. Like, he doesn't even have his own group of minions or his own area in the city. He's just absent. And then, okay, we get to the section where the fear gas takes over Gotham, and I love the way that scene looks. But then it gets fixed an hour later, and everything's good now. So it just kind of feels like all that build-up for that? Like, what are the lasting effects? Like, there's no real impact. It happens, it stops happening, and like that, it's just done. Like, I don't know, it feels so inconsequential to this city. You know, at the end of the game, the big thing is that everyone knows who Batman is now. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, does anyone care about what happened to Gotham? Like, anyone? And Poison Ivy sacrifices herself and you feel nothing? But then the game's just like, oh, wow, what a sacrifice. I guess she showed who she really was in the end. It's like, okay, so you're telling us exactly how to feel? That's just bad writing. And I also think everything with Scarecrow and Stag just reminded me too much of Joker and Young in Arkham Asylum. So, honestly, as much as I love the decision to make Scarecrow the main villain, and I do love the opening scene, I just thought they misused him every opportunity. He doesn't have enough of an impact on this story, and he just ends up feeling like a generic villain, unfortunately. But then we get to the Arkham Knight, and when they announced the character, I just thought to myself, oh, it's Jason Todd. It's just so obvious. And the entire game, I was just like, yeah, it's Jason Todd. Okay, now there's random flashbacks to Jason getting tortured. Yeah, it's Jason Todd. And look, it's not a shocker at all, but I don't always view predictability to be a bad thing. I don't. The big issue here is that they completely butchered this character. Like, who gives a shit if it's Jason Todd because he's not a developed character in this universe? It's relying on our pre-existing knowledge of this character, and it just doesn't work. I didn't feel anything regarding this character. I didn't feel his betrayal, his anger, his fear, because he's not developed at all. And those flashback scenes are the laziest form of exposition. They just happen so they can spell out the plot to us. And I get what the game is going for, that they show how Batman treats Tim, how Batman endangers Barbara, how he does this, and the lasting effects that could have on someone. But it's just so terribly handled because they don't spend any time getting you to care for Jason. It just feels like an afterthought. Really. So I hated everything with the Arkham Knight. Like, when you confront him at the end, You'd want there to be some sort of emotion, wouldn't you? But there's just nothing. And it turns out that Batman just gave up looking for him. I don't believe it for a second. It was just such shit writing. And then we get to everything with James and Barbara. And this is the storyline where I feel like it could have been really good. You know, the fact that Batman has been lying to James and he got his daughter killed. Like, that could have been really great. But there is one major issue with that storyline, and it's the fact as soon as Barbara dies, I just thought to myself, oh, she's not dead. That's the fear gas. And it was so obvious to me the entire time, and I'm like, when are they going to reveal the truth? And they eventually do, but it's just so terribly done. And then James just disappears for the second half of the game. So I didn't really like that storyline either. And okay, so I love the Joker. He is one of my favorite villains ever. He's great in Arkham Asylum, he's great in Arkham City, and I was excited for Black Mask to be the villain in Arkham Origins. But then it's like, surprise, it's actually the Joker. In this game, they're like, oh, the villains are Scarecrow and Arkham Knight. And then, surprise, it's also the Joker, baby. He's back. He's been dead for a few months, but he's back again. Why? Because we cannot come up with anything else. And it's just so shoehorned in. Like, no disrespect to Mark Hamill because I love him as this character. It's just a pitch perfect performance. But it just feels desperate. We couldn't have one Jokerless game even after he dies. And then the entire plot about how his blood is turning people into him is the most retarded shit ever. Like, Batman cured himself with the Fountain of Youth. But he's still in danger here? What? And then it just makes it seem like Joker's some kind of disease that you catch. Like, it just takes away everything interesting about the character and just gets rid of it. And then there's a section where all the bad Jokers escape and you have to take them down, and it just felt so pathetic. Like, I do love that song that Johnny Charisma sings to Batman about how your parents are dead and I'm still laughing. That's really great, that's really funny, but it just feels so amateurish. And then it turns out the good Joker is actually bad, and I'm like, okay, and who gives a shit? So yeah, I didn't really care for the psychological element. I do kind of like when it turns into Resident Evil at the end, but if anything, it made me want to play those games instead. So I wasn't a fan of that, and then we get to the ending, which, by the way, I watched the ending on YouTube because I'm not 100%ing this game. Riddler trophies and Riddler challenges are a bitch, so I won't do it. But I do find it's weird how Batman talks this entire game. Like, oh, this is the end for me. Why? Like, why are you talking like that? It just felt like Rocksteady was trying as hard as possible. And at the end of the game, when he reveals his identity, it just has no weight behind it. It just kind of happens, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess that happened. Whatever. Like, it's just a big nothing moment. And I don't buy that entire situation. Well, he can't escape the Scarecrow. Really? Like, okay, whatever you say, game. And then the fact there's also no real big final bosses, it feels a little anticlimactic. And, oh, and then he's got like the, I don't know, things on, so he can't move. And the Arkham Knight saves him? What the fuck? Like, the last time they confronted each other, Jason was angry and Batman says sorry and that's it? That's all it took for Arkham Knight to save him again? Like, that is just embarrassing. So and then he pretends to be dead or whatever at the end, and I don't know, I just think the story to this game is just awful. It is just pure trash. I hate it. I have nothing positive to say really about the story being told. I get what it's going for every now and again, but the execution is so shitty that it just dampens the entire game. I thought Scarecrow as the main villain could have been a really great direction, but they misuse him, they misuse Arkham Knight, they rely too much on the Joker again, and honestly, at the end of the day, with the fact that this story is shitty in the Batmobile, this is easily my least favorite Arkham game, but those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more videos soon, and Gavin out.